All right, guys. So this is going to be a video. It's a masterclass that we put together specifically for a bunch of individuals that got a resource from us. It specifically goes through what we call the evolution cycles of a sales team going from zero all the way up to multiple millions of dollars a month or multiple eight figures a year. And what it really breaks down and does a really good job of is helping you understand the basically cycle that sales teams go through and what assets, resources, processes, framework, structure needs to be in place before going to the next evolution phase. So think of evolution phase one from zero to maybe 50 or $100,000 a month, right? Evolution phase two is when you really start focusing on systems. So specific engines that need to go into play to give you leverage and obviously the capacity to scale. And then evolution phase three is what to do when you have your process for recruiting, for hiring, for training, for onboarding, KPIs, compensation, all this stuff figured out, and it's paired really well with your systems. So it's what to do once you actually have all of that stuff together so that you can scale sustainably, profitably. And anyways, the feedback we got from this was amazing, so we decided to put it out. Watch the entire thing. I'm just going to tell you, if you're starting this video, watch the entire thing because each piece builds off of the other. So with that being said, let's get straight into the content. I hope you enjoy it. My name is Aaron Platt. I own a company called Sales Momentum. Really, I'm going to go over what we've kind of done and taken part of in, I would say, the last 6, 7 years. And I'm going to try and break it down to, as like I said in the beginning, just bite-sized pieces for you guys to be able to take. My goal with this is just to give you guys access to a ton of really strong value. Stuff that we've seen work time and time again, format structures, different system outlines, etc., that you guys can take and run with. And then we do have something a little bit interesting towards the end that we're going to be given access to, which is really just going to be all of our stuff, everything that we've built up, all of our documentation, the playbooks, basically everything that we've accomplished and kind of put together over the last couple of years. So with that being said, I want to jump straight in. And yeah, so first thing we're going to talk about is going from distress to eustress. So there's a part of this that's going to be going through the different evolution phases that we've seen. I'll prove that real quick. Evolution phases that we've seen companies go through. And when I say evolution phases, I'm going to define that in a second. But an evolution phase for what we're specifically talking about looks like this. And I'm going to talk and kind of break this down in just a second here. But distress is really characterized by a sales team whenever there's overwhelming pressure and they can't really manage the challenges that are coming towards them, right? It's when opportunities are there, but everything's kind of in chaos and you can't really capitalize on those opportunities. Eustress is when you have the right people, the process, the structure, basically the systems and everything implemented in place so that you can take advantage of opportunities, right? And what we've realized is when you tie people, process, and platforms together, that is how you can actually find yourself in a position of eustress, right? And that's ultimately where, as a business owner, a leader of a team, a founder, whatever the case may be, you want to be in. Because opportunities, they don't come in a bright, beautiful ribbon bow package, right? They're tough and you have to be able to capitalize on them. So the only way to do that is by getting this stuff in place. The resource that many of you guys got from us to actually register for this is really kind of it's how do we put a structure around people? How do we prove a process? How do we obviously get that kind of wrap so that we can go in figuring out what we need to build in terms of systems, where our drop off is, where our leverage is, where our biggest opportunities are, right? And then we can go into C because we have proper foundation around that. Now, every single team, every single company, every single system, and the Adam Sands on the call can probably attest to this. Whenever you're building a system or a team or a department or a product or anything, right, you're going to start by obviously having the idea or whatever comes to mind, right, where you get this kind of energized motivation to start building something. You then design it, you drop it in, you set some goals, right? You start running into problems, you diagnose those problems, you redesign, and then it starts working. And when we're talking about systems and we're talking about sales teams in specific, right, what we found is there's little micro loops inside of one big loop for each evolution phase, right? So we've got the first phase, we've got the second phase, we've got the third phase. And one thing that, regardless of where you guys are at, I think it becomes a lot easier to deal with those challenges and a lot easier to, basically take things head on when you understand that everything isn't going to be perfect. And when you're starting to feel a lot of pressure and pain, right, it's always about getting that re-diagnosed, redesigned, and basically implemented so you can go to the next stage. And what I found is when I know what phase I'm in or know what problems I'm running into, I can tie it back to an evolution phase and I can understand, okay, this is where I'm at, this is where this team is at, this is where we're at with this particular client or whatever the case may be. And we can diagnose it properly and we can move forward and we can obviously get through the evolution phase. So when I say evolution phase or evolution spectrum or anything along those lines, this is really what I mean, right? So each evolution phase will outline key objectives that must be accomplished, revenue milestones, and the key elements that must be accomplished during each phase to sustain growth, right? Ultimately, scale the sales team you've always dreamed of. If you master this, you'll be able to do it over and over again. And really what I mean, and I'm going to talk about this a little bit more, is when you look at companies and teams that constantly go through these loops and they kind of start back at square one, it's because they're not doing the stuff that they need to do in that actual phase. For example, they're delegating leadership too fast. They're not setting proper expectations. They're not setting up KPIs or comp or anything that actually makes sense. There's a ton of stuff that they try and jump and skip past. And the teams that really explode and become uncommonly successful are the ones that actually take the time to do it. And that's what I want to start with. And then we're going to get into some of the sexy stuff, which is the systems and the playbooks and all of that stuff. But you guys all have access to a resource and it's an important one. So kicking that off, each one of the evolution phases that we're going to go through is going to have a few different things. One, there's going to be 3 key main objectives of that evolution phase. There's going to be 6 basically like guiding sub-objectives, so things that we need to accomplish, right? There's a pain and pleasure scale, and then there's a revenue scale. And the way that this breaks down is, for example, everybody here who's a founder or a leader or whatever the case may be, when you first start something, it hurts, right? Your pain scale is high, right? You're trying to figure it out. You're doing it yourself, right? Revenue, if you look down here, is really volatile, right? It's going up and down, up and down, up and down. Well, what happens is when you start to put a process around it and you prove that process, regardless of what it is. So Adam was just talking about the webinars, right? When they first started doing that, probably wasn't too fun. But then they started proving it, getting people to show up, and right, that started to feel pretty good now that we're actually doing that, right? Now, where that becomes difficult again and revenue starts to become volatile, and think about this with like your first couple sales reps, or think about this for your first real traffic source. So figuring out paid ads or organic or whatever the case may be, right? When you start to feel good, that's when your floor starts to become established in terms of revenue. So let's say you're around 50K, right? You're fluctuating maybe up or down 10K, but your floor is right around 50,000. When you bring in your first couple people, right? So going back to the Adam explanation, and they start trying to teach somebody else to run those webinars, well, that's when it starts to hurt a little bit more than before because it's a little different. And the volatility comes again because they have to get through that basically learning pain, right? Now all of a sudden it starts to feel good again, right? They're starting to optimize and put some systems around it, right? And this is where it really becomes a different kind of pain. And that's when you go to manage the actual overall system, overall process, overall team. And when you're tying this back to a sales team, this is anybody that runs a sales team is going to know exactly or can think back to when or where they're at in terms of this process, right? They started doing it, they proved it, started feeling good. They brought in their first people or outsourced or whatever the case may be, started to hurt, not feel very good. Revenue got volatile again. They started asking themselves, damn, did I make the right decision? Should I just take it back over, right? They get past that, it starts to feel good again. They start bringing in, scaling up, and then they go to manage an entire operation. And guess what? It starts to hurt different. That's the only way I can explain it. It's a very different type of scale. Now, the reason that I'm going over this with as much intent as I am is because you have a few different outcomes of this. You've got a successful transition to evolution phase 2. You have burnout, or you have try again, right? You start back over. You lose the team, you lose the process, whatever the case might be, right? There's only 3 outcomes, okay? Now, what I want to go over and what I'm going to be specifically talking about is, right, the first evolution phase is all about proving revenue, sales team, leadership, process, tech, infrastructure. It's all about getting that created and actually documented, right? It doesn't need to be anything crazy. It doesn't need to be perfect, but it's about proving essentially the processes that we have at hand. Phase 2 is all about replicating, and then phase 3 is all about scale, right? Now, a few things to understand, right? We talk a lot about decentralized leadership. So phase 1 is about getting in the infrastructure, right? We talk about bottom-up growth models, specifically when it comes to sales, right? So building something that feeds setters into closers, closers into sales leads into directors, right? And you can take this same model and run it with your CS team. You can run it with your marketing team, but we always want to promote within and grow people from the bottom up. And there's a ton of reasons why we talk about that. But at the same time, I've got an hour, so I want to keep it on tight. We love commission only. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. And then, we want to get a small but mighty tech stack in as early as possible. One of the biggest things that anybody who does system implementation is going to see time and time again is companies that take off and then they fall just as quickly. Because why? Their systems are all over the place. They're not sure what they're really working on. One team's over here kind of using this. They're paying for that. They're bolting on this, right? So we want to get the right systems in place quickly that have a really high ceiling, right? So we can scale, but we don't want to be jumping from platform to platform to platform because that's ultimately going to cause a lot of turmoil and it's going to slow you down, okay? So Anyways, real quick, let me see what the other slides are that I want to go through here. Yeah, phase one is going to be you. Everything's on you, 100%. Phase two, you're going to start at about 90-10. The ending is going to be about 50-50. You're going to start putting in that leadership team. And then phase three, you're going to get down to about 15-85% in terms of responsibility for that phase. So let's see here. Yep. So real quick, we're going to complete going over the baseline structure so you guys can understand the importance of this. Phase two, we're going to go into engines, so systems. And then phase three, I'm going to talk a little bit about revenue operations. So with that being said, everybody should have received this if you're on this call. Some of you guys may have came in through the late registration. That's fine. The thing that I want to make sure you guys are understanding is if we're going to get through phase one, specifically to the sales team, right? We're going from like a chaos, unproven process into proven process. That's really all phase one is. And if we want to get a structure built out and we want to get through this and we want to get to a successful end state with evolution phase one, the baseline is extremely important. Okay. And I'm going to explain a little bit more why. And this is going to lead into systems. Okay. So during phase one, you're responsible for pretty much everything. You're leading from the front of the line. You're basically teaching everything as you're doing it, right? You're showing people how to do things. And along the way, you're actually building these assets, right? So we're building, optimizing assets, we're training the team, driving sales and revenue, setting expectations, accountability, recruiting, hiring, firing. It's all on you, right? Now, what happens a lot of the times is why people fail in phase one or they burn out is because it's lack of proven process, okay? Delegation of leadership way too soon. So, hey, I'm not great at sales or I want to get this off my plate as quickly as possible. Let me delegate it to somebody else, right? And then there's a lack of reasonable expectations being set. So they're bringing in people and they're saying, hey, this is what you need to do, but they've never proven that process. So they're basically saying, hey, can you jump 6 feet in the air for me, even though it's not possible, right? Now, when we're talking about the baseline and the resource that you guys have. All right, guys, real quick, and then we're going to jump straight back into the video. If you do not have access to the asset and the resources, the trainings that we are specifically going over in this video, it is available for you down below. Just go to the description, click the link, you'll be able to get the asset. A lot of the in-depth training is also hosted inside of that asset, along with all of the spreadsheets, the resources, the KPI, the comp doc, all of that stuff is right there and available for you. So before we get back to the video, if you're having a lot of interest in following along and being able to build some of this stuff out yourself, just click the link below. And with that being said, let's get straight back to the video. The reason that this piece is important is one, we want to get the last 90 days trailing metrics so that we can get our baseline. And again, if you don't have trailing 90 days of metrics, your job is to put in a process, put in a path so that you can get trailing 90 days of baseline, right? It's on you. It's not on anybody else. If you don't have these metrics tracked, again, you need to get them tracked and you need to figure out how to get these numbers, right? When we get these last 3 months basically filled in, what that allows us to do, especially in evolution phase one, and again, guys, when I said this earlier, being sales teams that do the uncommon stuff early on are the ones that become uncommonly successful. This is all pretty uncommon stuff. People don't just think, oh, hey, I'm going to build my sales team and I'm going to take the time to actually set this shit up. It's usually a thought down the line where they have a bunch of people and they go, holy crap, I don't know what to do because XYZ is going on. I didn't have time to set this up, whatever the case may be. And then they're trying to band-aid everything. And that gets you caught in a really bad position. So taking the time to get this in place is not just so that we can get to this tab. It's actually so that we can work backwards and we can go to this asset right here and we can start to set up our baselines for our sales team, right? Some of you guys might have full cycle. Some of you guys might have other things. That's fine, right? And I'm happy to help you guys adjust this sheet towards the end or this week if you guys have any customizations that are needed. But basically what we're doing is we're taking the numbers when we have this baseline in place, right? All of our baseline numbers are right here, right? So when I'm going to set expectations, so I'm bringing on my first setter, I'm bringing on my first closer, I'm bringing whatever the case may be. I have a few already. I just want to get them proper accountability expectation set, right? When I know my ad spend delivers this amount of leads, outbound calls delivers this amount of total booked calls, this is our show rate, all of these metrics, right? Well, then I can go back to my sheet and I can actually build out proper expectations for my sales team, right? Meaning, hey, if you do 5,000 dials, right, 250 a day, you're going to set 70 calls, right? Which is going to end up with 6 deals closed, which is going to be an average about $70,000 a month, right? Where's this from? Well, it's from our last 90 days trailing metrics, right? And it's actually 20% below our expected KPI, right? Now, again, start summary. Sure. When we get these numbers in, right, this is how you can bring somebody on, properly set them up, give them targets, let them be accountable to those targets. And it's not just some high pie in the sky setup. And again, this is going to roll into systems. What metrics are important to track? What numbers are our biggest leverage points? Where do the setting team need the most help and support, whether that's automation, better prioritization, lead scoring, whatever the case may be, right? Now, once we have this in place, and this is why this is evolution phase one, we have our expected zone for all of our setters. So when you're bringing on a new setter, right, guess what? We're trying to ramp them as fast as we can in 30 days, which I'm going to show you guys how we do, to this number, these numbers right here, right? This is what we're trying to do. Now, when we're looking at compensation, this is a higher level way to do this. Once you get this in place, there's some other additional things that we can do. We can look at cost per sale, cost per commission, all the other costs that are associated to make sure you have good margins on your services, products, et cetera. But then we're creating our comp based off of our expectations, right? So when Johnny comes to you and says, hey, Mustafa, I'm not making the money I necessarily want to make, right? It's like, hey, well, let's look back at the last 3 months. Hey, it's because you red zone twice and you yellow zone once, right? All you got to do, if you want to make an extra 20% a year on top of whatever your average baseline is, so if our average is 67,000 a year, you want to make 20% more, you want to make up to 80, you want to make up to 90, you want to make 100, here you go. Hit green zone twice a quarter, once a quarter. You're giving them proper expectations and you're allowing them to pick their targets and where they want to go. And everybody understands that a great sales rep, if you give them their numbers and they know what they can do and where the areas of improvement are and all these different things, and it's clear and it's based off of factual metrics, they're going to see a ladder and they're going to climb the hell out of it. That's what they're going to do, right? And if they don't, and they're falling in red zone month after month after month, well, guess what? When you start bringing on more reps, you're always going to be replacing the bottom 10% that can't keep up. Okay. Now, when we're building our comp packages, right, we always put red zone, yellow zone, green zone. There's different incentives and comp that you can do. We always like to throw in milestones. Again, I don't have time to go over the milestone promotion process, but we always put in milestones. I mentioned it in the beginning. We like going bottom up. So setters to closers, closers to sales leads, et cetera, right? These milestones help within our promotion process. And ultimately, when we have a pod, we're going to understand how much ad spend is going to deliver how many leads, which means we need X amount of setters, which means we need X amount of closers based on the call volume, which means we should be producing X out of each pod that we have created, right? And this is where the systems come in. Because if we have one pod, let's say 2 or 3 setters, a closer, a sales lead, whatever the case may be, well, now systems can help you guys obviously drastically crank those numbers up so you can get a baseline of this up 30, 40% and still have it as yellow zone expectations. This is why this shit is important from day one. Even if you're the one doing it, these are the numbers you should be trying to prove, okay? Same thing with closer. Once you get a sales lead director, it's the same process, okay? Now, going back into this, red zone, green zone, got that covered. Yeah, I mean, basically, you want to set the proper expectations, align the roles and compensation, set a role, close a role. You guys should get that done. If you have full cycle, set it up transparently. Full cycle to start with is fine, but once you get bigger and you have a larger team, you want setters focused on setting calls and you want closers focused on closing. You don't want the crossover, right? Especially if you have high volume. Now, moving along, there's some cool stuff that you can do with this, right? Like early on, it's just about getting simple, clear, defined expectations comp. You can start driving like future paced bonuses, implement a record holder. Like for example, one of the first teams I used to do, every single milestone, they'd get this big check. This big check would go up on their wall. They didn't get to cash that check. So if they hit their first milestone, it'd say, hey, $2,500, we'd sign the check virtually or in office, give it over to them, ship it to them. They'd have it on their wall. They can't cash it. So we actually didn't wire anything over or give them a smaller check to deposit until they hit their second milestone. So we're giving them something physical to literally stare at and something big in the office, something that they're looking at constantly. And they're not getting that until the next basically milestone is met. Introducing pod structure and then our record holder ceremony, right? Biggest deal closed, biggest month, biggest week, all these different pieces, right? So once you start getting this culture in place, you can do a lot of cool stuff. Promotion process, we are going to skip past. Let's see, recruiting process. We're going to skip over that. Meeting cadence. We'll skip past that because I want to get to the systems component. One thing that is in your guys' doc that if you guys haven't taken a chance to actually look at, I 100% would. Now, when we're going through this process, right, we used to set up basically a meeting cadence, and this meeting cadence drove our team more than anything that we put in place. The reason being is that we were going in every single week and we were closing out our week and we were always setting a goal against that week, right? So this weekly scorecard, right, we were going through and tracking every single week if we were hitting the goal that we set on Monday or not, right? Every Friday, if we met that goal that we set for the week, whether it was a setting goal or a revenue goal or whatever the case may be, we had different incentives every single Friday that anybody, if we met that goal, we'd basically spin the wheel and everybody would be able to participate, right? Each deal closed an extra $250, commission increase for Friday through Sunday, whatever the case may be. And Transparently, we did this virtually. We did it in office. The energy was just amazing. I don't know if you guys are going to be able to hear this, but I love playing this video because it takes me back to when I was doing this without even realizing that I had this structure in place. There we go.
Let's go! Come on, Corn. What you got? Oh! Oh!
There's the goal.
Oh my God! Oh my God!
Anyways, so when we were running this, because we had our baseline, because we knew what we were trying to attack for the week, because we understood everybody's expectations, et cetera, and we could set actual goals and we were tracking that, we barely had systems in place, but we had a massively fast-growing sales team that came in every single day excited to hit that, right? And every Friday, if the goal was met for the week, we'd spin the wheel. It was as simple as that. And I know everybody has different ideas and goals and different things along those lines for what they want their culture to be. But these different pieces, I'm going to keep going back to this. When you start to do uncommon things consistently early on, you're going to be able to grow faster, stronger, better with leaders being developed, right? Now, moving on past that. Okay, so let's see here. Meeting cadence, payroll. Okay, so going from phase 1 to phase 2, right? We talked about going from doing it yourself to teaching it, to managing it, right? To going to a successful outcome. Again, the biggest thing that you guys can do is you can get your baseline numbers in place. You can set proper expectations, KPIs. You can set up a strong meeting cadence, and you can set weekly and monthly goals. That right there, with little to no anything else, will get you guys through evolution phase 1. You'll be able to get through that, and that's when systems are really going to come into play. Okay, obviously you're gonna have marketing figured out, you got fulfillment, there's other things, but I'm specifically talking around sales right now. Okay, now when we're going to evolution phase 2, right, we're talking about optimizing the process, putting systems around each one of those processes so that we can actually scale, right? Marketing and sales, sales CS, everything's getting aligned with those systems. So we're tying in obviously marketing to sales, sales into fulfillment, et cetera. We're doing this through systems, obviously, and we're creating a more replicatable, basically, result, right? If we start by proving the process, the next thing we're doing is we're putting systems around that to be able to get a more replicated result at the end of the day, right? We want to be able to consistently hit the same type of results. And we also want to take leverage and build it into the processes that we have basically proven. Now, the end of this is going to be promotion, delegation, all that stuff. And we'll talk a little bit about that. But again, pain versus pleasure, you're going to start optimizing. It's going to hurt, right? This is where you have a proven process. You don't necessarily have a lot of the systems in place. Stuff is falling apart. You go, oh shit, we need to get systems around this because I'm doing a bunch of manual reporting. I'm not sure where leads are ending up. They're all falling through the cracks. Our pipeline's a mess. We're actually starting to tread backwards, right? That's when you're going to start feeling the hurt and you're going to start trying to optimize those processes, right? So you're going to organize, get that basically optimized. It's going to start to feel good. And then you're going to start to put systems in. And guess what? Adopting systems, especially the first systems you ever put in, is tough. Adoption isn't an easy feat, right? You can build the most badass systems in the world for your sales team. Adoption is still going to be one of those things that could be a silent killer for you if you don't focus on it, right? Once you get past that, it's going to feel good again, and then you're going to start replicating, right? And that's where you're going to be able to basically get through this, last evolution phase that is really going to be important here. Now, as I go through this next portion here, before I go in anything, does anybody have any questions? Because I'm about to shift gears into specifically systems and engines. If you guys do have any questions, feel free to, let me see. How can I access the Slack channel? Not sure what that is. Blah, blah, blah. Does anybody have any questions? Feel free to unmute and jump in because I'm about to take a pretty hard shift into specifically systems. And I just want to make sure what I just went over is going to breeze past some of you guys. And some of you guys are going to be like, damn, that's something that I need to take. Yeah, go ahead, Mustafa.
Yo, awesome presentation so far. And question is around the commission only structure. Just if you any color you could add to that. I'm all ears right now. We're going through hiring a few people, so just
Setter, closer, sales director, what role?
Setter and setters.
Are you hiring domestic, overseas? What are you doing?
We're trying for overseas with really good English.
Okay, it's always a challenge.
Yeah.
I love it.
We actually found a couple guys though. So
yeah, I mean, you definitely will. I mean, they're out there. So depending on your pay scale, right? What I always like to do whenever I'm looking at commission, right, or any kind of pay for any role, right, is I want to figure out what my expectations are in terms that can meet their expectations, right? So let's say I'm hiring domestic and my setters come in with the expectation of like 60 to 80K, right? Okay, great. Well, here's my expectation because I have baseline, right? I know that if I have the right systems and what I've done is doing $300 a day or whatever the case may be, like this right here will equate to $68,000 a year if this is their comp plan, right? So you start by basically figuring out where the median is that you need to be at, and you reverse it from there, right? Add 20% on top, add 20% below, red zone, green zone, set it up like that, because then you can set proper layouts. And if somebody, say, for example, you find a just rock solid stud, they come in, they're like, hey, I know our average baseline's 1,500, but I want to be making 3,500, 4K, whatever. Well, you can show them how to do that, right? So there's a lot of different things you can do. Like instead of commission, you could do a kicker. So $100 per sale. Again, I don't know exactly what you do, but there's plenty of different ways that you can get creative. I always like having commission, right? You can either do a kicker or base comp. Again, this is completely up to you. And then yearly milestones, really what this is it's a bonus, but at the same time, this is where your comp takes into account recognition. Because comp should have, especially for sales teams, you should have uncapped, be able to grow, right? There should be bonuses and milestones, and you need recognition in that comp plan. Because at certain points, when people make consistent money, sometimes you just need to recognize them, and that's more than a bonus check, right? So we're tying into account there. I hope that helps. I'm happy to support afterwards if you have further questions, and we've got a ton of different comps. So yeah.
Thank
Any
you.
other questions, guys? Yeah, absolutely.
I have a question.
Sure.
Okay, so quick thing, I apologize, I was late. So the first about 30 minutes, is there any way I can still be able to watch that?
Yeah, we're gonna drop the recording.
Okay. And the second question is, I'm also going through a hiring process right now. And everything that you are teaching and sharing is all B2B focused, right?
What I just shared could be B2C, B2B. Yeah, it's just sales team structure and growth, basically evolution cycles. So
Sorry, go ahead.
yeah, that format, we've run that format for B2B, SaaS, we've ran it for B2C, product, lower ticket, mid ticket. Nothing that I just went over is specific to B2B or B2C.
Okay. Because what I'm going through right now is that I'm in a hiring process of a sales team, and I already have I have 3 guys on, 2 guys are active, 1 guy already has experience. How do you manage between an experienced and non-experienced in terms of the recruiting process? Do you recruit non-experienced and put them to a training program, or do you?
Yeah. So let me go through this because I think this will help. And before I do, Nicholas, if you want to ask your question, just so I.
Yeah, you may get to this. I know you kind of flew through it. If you're not going to cover the recruitment process you guys have,
I don't have time to go
Okay.
over it because it's a little bit more in depth. I am happy if you want to book a call with me afterwards to take you through it.
Okay.
Depends where you're at. If you're doing volume in recruiting, then it's going to be really, really good for you. If you're going a little bit lower in terms of not hiring too many reps, there's kind of a boiled down version that can be simplified. But I will cover this because I think this will help you guys a ton, right? We just went through baseline, right? We set our 30-day minimum KPIs. Well, when we're onboarding new reps, what's our goal? Our goal is to ramp them as quickly with as little opportunity cost as possible to our average expectations, right? That is our goal, right? If you hire somebody and they can't get to average baseline in, let's say, 30, 60, 90 days, well, that 60-day surplus of them not hitting expectation and metrics, how much money is that costing you? A lot. It's one of the most expensive things that people do not even look at. If you hire the wrong person and they're taking too long and you don't have a proper structure to get them basically ramped up in X amount of time, every 30 days could be costing you 10s, 20s, 30, 40, 50, 60, $70,000 because you're delivering leads to somebody that's 20, 30, 40% below baseline. So one of the things that we like to do is when we get this in place, and I wasn't going to go over this, but I will, is this is the easiest way to get this structure in place. What we do is we basically have this spreadsheet and we create all of the assignments and we bucket it into 3 categories. Okay. We have basically setup, which is simple. Think of it like filling out your onboarding form, right? Setting up your 1099, putting them on payroll system. You have internal basically setup. You have training, which is going to be like product training, sales training, script training, all these different things, right? And you have production, which is a challenge for the first 30 days for anybody that you bring on. And this production should be what gets them up to that 30-day basically average KPI baseline mark. It's very simple, right? The way that we structure this again, setup, logistics, right? Training, halfway through the training. So once they get their, for example, scripting down, products down, company history, all of the stuff that they need to actually take on conversations and sales calls and all this other stuff, you have them fill out a checkpoint form. And that checkpoint form, the way that we did it, is once they were halfway through training, this should be like day 3, day 4, right? They fill out a form saying, hey, I'm done through all the training. I've gone through all the resources. I'm ready for the role play with you, Aaron. And they role play with me. And if they don't pass with a grade B, C, A, whatever the case may be, they go back through the training. If they pass it, again, it's automated, guys. Like, it's your first time doing this. You're going to outline this. It's going to be really simple. And as you're bringing on new people, you're just recording the Zoom and you're dropping it in each piece. That's how simple this first run through is going to be, right? Then you go back and you can optimize, add things, do all that stuff. But what you really want is you want setup, done. Internal operations fills out the form, says this person's ready for training. That's when day 1 starts. Day 1, day 2, day 3, they're getting through their first training, whatever. They fill out the checkpoint when they feel confident, they're ready to do it, right? You give them timeframes on this, right? And then they move into active lead flow. And you're giving them old leads or whatever the case may be to get their feet wet, all of that stuff, right? And once they hit and they get through this piece, they're going straight into production. And production is like a fitness challenge. Like, hey, you're going to get to this number in 30 days, right? Make your first 500 calls, make your first 1,000, 1,500, take your first 5 discovery calls, book your first call, be the first one out of your group to book a call, all these different things. And the way that we've done this in the past, and this kind of goes to the recruiting side, is when we bring on groups, right? If we're really doing a lot of recruitment, right? Guess what? We throw it on a leaderboard, and this is everybody's first 30 days, right? This is how much revenue they produced. This is their calls. This is the number of points that they brought on, right? And those points are really, really simply put. It's just how many points they achieved. Every time they complete something, it adds points to their score, right? And this is all tied together, and there's a bunch of different stuff here. But the easiest thing for you guys to do when you're thinking about how do I bring on new reps, or maybe you're redoing that because you're bringing on new salespeople, 3 phases, guys. You have internal setup, you have training, and then you have production. Those are the 3 things that you have to have in your onboarding process for salespeople. It's that simple, right? And if you do this properly, the first time you do it again, you're going through and recording and doing all this stuff. But then the second time, you're optimizing it, you're updating it, you're adding different stuff in, somebody else is doing something better. And when we're talking about the promotion process, and I'm just going to touch on this because it's valuable. And here's kind of, this is, adding production portion in your training, right? So you've got your setup, this piece, and then your actual assignments like production framework. But one thing I did want to talk about is our promotion process. So let me see here. And this, I think, will make a lot of you guys very excited because you're not going to be responsible for doing all of the resources and trainings and all of that stuff forever. Let me see here. Sorry, guys, got to find it. Actually, I might have taken it out of this deck. Let me see here. It's worth the wait, I promise. Let me see. Okay, so this is more of the onboarding process explained. Here it is. Okay, so going back to that milestone 1, 2, and 3, when a rep reaches the milestone 3 that we put together in the comp, right, inside of here, right here, right? So they do 250 or 2.5 million, whatever your number is, right? Milestone 3. They're now eligible to move into a closing role if they're a setter, right? They're eligible. So what we do, especially when we really start to ramp up, and this is not something you guys should do immediately. Please don't do this immediately because it'll be a waste of your time. This is for later down the line. Every single time somebody hits their 3rd milestone, we send them basically a form. And that form is upload your best 20 outbound calls, upload your best 20 inbound discovery calls, basically put in all these assets and then write your own script, right? What are 3 things that you wish you knew when you were coming on for onboarding that you know now that you could teach the next guy? And basically what we're doing is we're taking all these assets every single time we promote somebody up and we're bringing that back into the training. So after a while, when people really start ramping up and moving forward, all of your training resources, all your materials, all your best scripts, all of these different things will be produced by people who have actually achieved and gone through the process and basically been promoted. So this is how you can build something where it's always bottom up, right? You can keep it commission only, but you're always having really, really good assets, resources, and everything developed for you after you get the framework in, right? So I hope that's helpful. I can go in more a little, a different time, and you guys will have access to a call link afterwards if you guys want to chat through any of this additional stuff. But moving on. So there's a few things, and I'm going to try and be very diligent here. I'll leave some time at the end for questions, but when you get this baseline in place, you have your first couple reps in. Again, systems are how you create leverage, right? And you want to have the right systems in place, right? We break them down into engines, and every engine starts with people, right? We need proper roles, expectations, et cetera. We have process, right? And then we have platform. So that's like a HubSpot, a Go High Level, a Close, a Active Campaign, right? The platform, all it does is it houses the process and it houses the role. That's how you guys have to think about this. And what I see too many times, and many, many times, is people are buying software and putting a ton of platforms in their stuff, even though they don't even have properly defined roles and they don't have properly defined process. So how the hell are they supposed to wrap around platforms into that? They're just going to make it even more of a mess, right? Now, I am going to cover a few different things. We have spent a lot of time taking the absolute best of the best of everything that we've proven over the many years that we've been doing this in this space, from every single client that we've done, every success, every failure, all these different things. And we've rolled them all into these playbooks. And what I decided to do today is essentially pull out. So every single one of these playbooks is going to have specific mechanisms that create that engine. So we're going to talk about the setter engine, the closer engine, the show rate engine, our reactivation engine, the marketing engine that many of you guys probably don't know, but you're in today. So that little low ticket lead funnel going into the registration, the masterclass, et cetera, right? That's a marketing engine, right? But we're going to be talking about one key mechanism for each one that I think will give you guys really strong value. So you can take it and you can leave from here with something that you know is actionable if you guys are at this step, okay? Now, the first one I'm going to cover is around the setting engine, okay? And that specific mechanism is going to be around lead scoring, okay? Now, when we're talking about lead scoring, right, we've gone through a lot of different things. We've gone through a lot of different models, a lot of different pieces, but at the end of the day, when you have a setting team, right, what we see all too often is they're delegating leads. There's a big, ugly bucket, and the reps are just grabbing and scooping in for leads, trying to make stuff happen, right? Super inefficient. They miss a ton of active people, right? And it's not very scalable, right? When there's too much data and all this other stuff, it just becomes kind of a monotonous thing where you really don't have any control over prioritization. So the first thing that I'm going to go over is kind of the new model and how we kind of lead score. This is it, okay? The way that we run this is every single time a lead comes in, there's an active score that wraps around that lead. And it's based off of whether somebody has high volume or medium volume or super low volume in terms of lead flow. But what we look and what we track for is activity from the prospect. So page views, emails open, opt-ins, downloads, purchases, whatever, link clicks, video views, you name it, right? And we wrap around scoring that's dynamic. And again, I told you guys in the beginning, like we're going to get a little bit more in depth. So this is it. But the reason that this is so valuable, and it's going to tie together when we get to the reactivation engine at the end, is if a lead's dormant for 6 months, but then they all of a sudden re-opt in, or they open a bunch of emails, or they click a link, or they revisit your website, or whatever the case may be, guess what? The score goes up. It's simple, right? If they're not active and they're time decaying out of the system, what happens to most people when they have lead scores? They're just looking at like this quality score. So it's like, what did they, fill out on the application, or how much revenue they're doing, or whatever, right? That's great for qualification. But when it comes to activity, right, that's our true lead score. When they come in, if they're active, we want to spike that score up. If they're dormant, we want to lower that score. Why? Because if we have thousands of leads that are coming into our setting team, we always want them focused on obviously new leads, right? Leads that are active, and then people that are becoming reactivated, right? And we have another, a bunch of other trainings on my YouTube and some other stuff on how we actually group these leads into buckets and create power dialing queues and all this other stuff and different cadences to go along with this. But if you do anything, start to think about lead score as not just quality score, but activity scoring, right? Because that's what's going to be most beneficial for your actual setters. And there's a ton of stuff on how we actually filter in the best leads and all this other stuff. But this is a great way to think about lead score because, again, most of you guys, if you're generating a good amount of leads, you don't know it, but a ton of leads from 6 months ago are actually active again. And guess what? Nothing's going to happen to them. They're not going to be getting emails. They're not going to be getting calls. They're just going to go to no man's land. And your ad spend and your return on ad spend could be way higher if you had something like this set up. But again, it's got to be set up the right way. And this is just one key mechanism of about 6 or 7 that are in this setter engine process. Okay. Now, going into the closer process, again, same thing. Got a bunch of playbooks here. The mechanism that I do want to talk about is just one thing that's simple for all of you guys to put in. And we call it the red zone. Again, maybe you guys understand this already, but I'm going to frame it to you guys in a little bit of a different way. When we are looking at our closer engine, there's a bunch of different mechanisms, right? We have pipeline foundation, we've got pipeline velocity, we've got pipeline automated management. We have all these different basically key mechanisms, but the sub mechanisms that build that are how this thing kind of goes around. Okay. Now, the one mechanism that I want to talk about, and the reason that I'm talking about this is red zone, because no matter where you guys are at, you guys can implement something like this. And it's not about, for example, putting in a deal stage that's right before closed one that says red zone and just piling up deals there. But what it is about training your closers to always have active and manage the red zone deals. So whenever you're going into a meeting and you're trying to forecast, right, and you don't want to set up actual forecasting numbers and all that stuff because it's a little bit sophisticated, it's complicated, what you can do is you can require your closers to always have 5 people or 10 people or whatever amount of prospects in that red zone. basically at any given moment, right? That is their hottest prospects. It's their highest basically potential closes. It's their deals that they have to absolutely manage. And what we do with Red Zone is, for example, around HubSpot, you understand this. We put CSPs for expected close date. So when they move in there, it goes to expected close date. If that expected close date passes, there's some automation that fires, reminders happen, all of that stuff. But when you're going from basically a person who's teaching closing to managing closing, there's going to be a ton of deals that just slip right out of there. And your job as the sales manager and the sales leader on your team at that point, or the founder, is to help close red zone deals. I want you guys to understand that. It's not about, hey, you guys are closing now, I'm just going to look at numbers and be all cool. If you're the partner in the team, or you're the revenue responsible founder, owner, leader, whatever, you're there to help get deals closed for your team. So if you can actively help manage red zone, and whenever you're meeting with your team, you're reviewing their red zone deals and you're saying, hey, who do I need to jump on with? How can I help you get this guy closed? Whatever the case may be, you can prioritize the deals that are next up and get them through the finish line quicker. It's one of the simplest things that you guys can all put in place. And it's going to give you a very, again, going back to evolution phase 2, replicatable way to bring up a sales manager. Hey, Mr. Sales Manager, you're not just about numbers, systems, metrics, whatever. You're here to freaking close red zone deals and help people get shit across the finish line. And I hope you guys are understanding what I'm saying, because a lot of managers that I see, they sit back and they don't do a damn thing except for try and manage process. And like, that's not why you're there. Like, we need to make sure the sales team is being driven. So, and that's my take on it. Again, that's what I like to do. Okay. So that's red zone. Very straightforward. It's a deal stage before the actual closed one. Any deposit, verbal commitment, any proposal that goes out, etc., goes into red zone. And what you guys will know, again, going back to our baseline, right? What we're looking at is how many offers were made. Those are going to be all of the red zone deals, right? And we're not just tracking our closing rate for completed closing calls. We're also tracking our offer to close percentage, because when you have a manager, guess what? When we're going back to that sales lead sheet, that KPI sheet that I was going over earlier, what do you think one of their metrics is? Offer to close. Okay. So, and again, if you're in a different industry, you're knocking doors, you're solar, all this stuff can be applied. We're just using different metrics and different components, right? At the end of the day. Okay. Now, getting back into this thing. Next one's going to be show rate. Okay. And I promise I'll leave you guys time for questions. That's why I'm trying to get through this. But show rate, we have tried everything under the sun you can imagine, whether it's B2B, whether it's B2C, you name it, we've tried it, we've done it. It works for a season, then doesn't, and then it works again, and then it doesn't, and then somebody has a different industry and it changes. I want to cover one thing that we have been trying recently. We actually worked with Cole and Closers and a few other bigger clients on similar process around this. And I'm just going to give you guys the most proven, simplest way to look at this. And I haven't found anything to beat this. And it's the simplest thing that you're going to hear today. Okay. When we're talking about pre-call, whether it's for discovery calls, whether it's for appointments in person, whether it's for appointments of you showing up at somebody's house, it doesn't freaking matter. There's 3 stages that you need to go through. And the problem with most pre-call confirmation processes is people are only focused on 1, maybe 2. Okay. And I know this is going to sound really elementary, but I'm going to tie it together. And hopefully this gives you guys an aha, because if you have a show rate problem, this will fix it. Okay. The first step is we need to elicit a response. That's it. If they book a call, we need to prompt them to respond to us. That's step 1. Step 2, we need to confirm the appointment, duh. But then step 3, where everybody stops, is we need to nurture the individual all the way up to the meeting start time. That's the reason people have such poor show rates, is because they go, hey, I don't know, Adam, what's going on? It's Aaron, Sales Momentum. You've got an appointment next week on Tuesday. I just want to get it confirmed real quick. Yep, sounds good. I'll be there. Cool. Peace. See you later. Tries to show up. They don't show up. Right. That's what most people's confirmation or emails or automation or whatever the case may be is. What we've started to do, and what we've seen work, okay, is the way that we set this up is every single type of call, okay, and again, this is going a little bit more in depth. Every type of call, whether it's discovery, closing, follow-up, there's a confirmation, basically status. And every time that call's booked, it's in pending, okay? The way that we bucket this stuff is we have 48 hours until meeting start time, not confirmed, 24 hours until meeting start time, not confirmed, okay? And what we do is we basically create our automation off of their disposition for that call, okay? So if they're pending, if they're confirmed, if they canceled, right? That's why we're starting to put this in place. And what we're doing with those basically times frames of those buckets is we're putting a process around this to where an overseas domestic resource can come in and their number one job and their only job is to be a confirmation specialist. That's it. Now, what they're leveraging to do this is blue texts. So most of the time, they're not even calling. Green texts. You guys all get it. If you're in the info agency, any of these different spaces, like green texts just don't freaking work right now. And then email just gets overlooked, right? So we are basically putting in a process and basically dynamic views that send people from all calls booked to 48 hours to 24 hours to confirmed, right? And we're putting in a specific role that'll literally cost you guys $1,000 to $1,500 a month, that their only job is to A, elicit response, B, confirm appointment or remove the calendar event, right? And C, nurture them up until the actual meeting. And the playbooks that we put around this is when we're nurturing them up until the meeting start time, we're trying to get them to watch some YouTube videos, get a free resource. Hey, we're asking questions, right? We're engaging the prospect all the way up to the start time. And then you guys are going to see two things if you actually do this. One, your sales cycle is going to go down, meaning the time of your sales process is actually going to come back a little bit. The second thing is you're also going to get that healthier show rate. Okay. So again, very simple, right? When we're talking about dynamic views, right? We have 48 hours, we have all, we have 24 hours, we have canceled, confirmed, etc. We hire a individual. We don't have our setters doing it because good freaking luck getting your setters to confirm every single appointment. And we don't have our closers doing it because we want them focused on closing and closing those red zones. We have a $1,500 resource that their only job and everything that they're managed to do is around getting that show rate up and nurturing people up until a confirmed appointment. And guess what? You can use that red zone, green zone, yellow zone to create their comp. And we actually have all of this basically built out in a playbook. So it's really, really easy. Last thing I'll say around this is what you track matters when it comes to reporting. So what we do is just call, or, this is basically the confirmation specialist roll card type automated report for, in this use case, HubSpot, but Disco call is confirmed in terms of percentage for this week, this month, this quarter, call scheduled, completed, overall show rate. And then we have our same thing for closer. What we're also doing is we're basically tracking how many people and what percentages show up if they have a confirmed status or a not confirmed status and dependent on source. Okay. So that's show rate. Last thing I want to cover, and what's really going to kind of tie all this stuff together, is our reactivation engine. I drew a really, really dumbed down, simple iteration of this because this is one of the most powerful things as you guys scale that you could possibly put in place. I'm telling you, it just people don't have this. Companies don't have this, and they should. So when we're talking about holes, right? And if we're looking at, for example, I don't know, let's go back to our baseline, right? And let's just look at our, I don't know, lead to booking or our lead to close percentage, right? Our lead to close percentage is going to be one of our biggest opportunities pretty much at all times, right? So how many people do we actually close out of all the leads that we generate? And when you look at this for most companies, early on, late, doesn't really matter, tons of lead flow, little lead flow, what you're ultimately going to start seeing is their window of working a lead is usually really short. Meaning like after 30 days, if the person doesn't close, book, or do anything along those lines, they just fall into no man's land and they just die, right? That lead's just gone, okay? And this happens in the pipeline too. So it doesn't just happen on your front end, it happens in your pipeline for your setter process, your closer process, right? It happens with your red zone deals, right? So what we've realized is once you have a properly established phase one, so you're getting through evolution phase one, you're getting into phase two. So evolution phase two, you've got a setter engine, a closer engine, you've got your show rates, evened out, you've got some marketing stuff going. Follow-up is one of the easiest things that you can put in, but it needs to be across the 3 primary drop-off points that we found, okay? You don't need to go crazy. You don't need to look for every single one. You just need to cover the 3 that I'm going to go over. And I'm going to show you guys kind of how we do it. So when you have your setting process, this is people reaching out to leads, trying to get them set, right? You're going to have either an activity threshold or you're going to have a time decay that gets met. Think time decay as 15, 30 days, 60 days, 90 days with no activity. Think of threshold as I've called them 15 times with no response, right? You're going to have different thresholds that are basically going to pull people out of the setter process. And it's going to drop them down into layer 1, which I'll explain layer 1 and layer 2. Again, this is a very simple version of this, but it'll help illustrate the point. During your discovery process, if you're doing a 2-call close, right, you've got no-shows, and then you've got people that you talked to that were qualified that just didn't move into the closing process, right? So no-shows, obvious, right? Qualified time decay. This is one of the biggest areas that we see people's stuff build up. And if you have a pipeline that you're looking at, go look at the number of deals that are sitting in qualified nurture or completed closing call or whatever your deal stage dispositions are. If you have a lot of deal flow, you're going to have thousands of people sitting in there. And if you start to filter for activity, many of them are still active. You're just not doing anything with them. Okay. So when we're looking at this, right, layer 1, and same thing for closing process, right? Your red zones, your offers that don't close, you're qualified, but whatever. Buildup, massive buildup. Okay. So what we do is whenever X amount of activity with no, or X amount of time with no activity, sorry, is met, right? So think about like 30 days, 60 days, it depends on your sales cycle, right? With no activity or, no forward movement, right? What we do is we take that contact and we drop them into an active list that filters them in. This entire process right here is automated. So all of our layer 1 active lists and workflows are automated correspondence. All we're trying to do, guys, is we're dropping them into a segmented list. We're tagging them as layer 1. So they met layer 1 drop off, right? And that workflow is engaging them until we get activity or until they actually rebook it back into the process. And there's two things we track here. We track reactivated revenue generated. Okay. So we see all of the revenue that we actually brought back. Okay. And we also track whether it was human reactivation or automation reactivation. Okay. And some of this may be going way over your guys' heads, but I promise you, if you look back at this or you bring this to your systems people or whatever, they're going to go, oh, shit, this is cool. Okay. Now, if they break any of these workflows, meaning they go all the way through and they don't trigger reactivation. Okay. So they go all the way through that 30-day cadence, that 60-day cadence. And again, this is very important. Layer 1 is 100% automated. Also, what you can do with this, if you're fancy and you get this set up and you're at the right point, and you have the right team to manage it, here's where you implement AI. That can be dangerous, real dangerous. Okay. But if they go through this and they don't trigger our reactivation, guess what? They drop into layer 2. Layer 2 is an all-in-one marketing list. And this is where marketing can either retarget with ads, they can run their newsletters, all this stuff. And again, we're just trying to get an activity spike so we can send them back into the process. Okay. So just to recap, guys, setter engine, the lead scoring, closer, red zone, show rate, confirmation specialist role, use blue text. We tried to send blue. We use link. Right now, we're probably going to go with link, which you guys can check out or you guys can ask us questions around. And then the last piece, this is not something you should do right away if you don't have a system in place or good lead flow or whatever the case may be, but you want to get the highest amount of value and return on your marketing dollars as possible. This is how you do it. Okay. And this is how you also make it so there's no clutter in the sales pipeline. There's no, manual process to go dig and dig for leads. We're constantly going to be bringing leads back up. Why? Because the lead score that we put in the setter engine triggers this entire freaking thing. Okay. So anyways, with all that being said, I said we have something a little bit interesting for you guys. I'm going to go through it and then you guys can absolutely ask as many questions and I'll stay on, hang out for a little bit. So anybody that wants to book call, you got questions, regardless, whatever, you just need some very specific help, whatever the case may be. I mean it, book the call, you can do that. For anybody that wants to actually work through this stuff, so this is not something that we've ever done in the past, but it's something I've always wanted to do. And I'm pretty excited about it. Here's what I'm doing, and it's something that we're going to be focusing on basically very intently for the next year, 2 years. This is what we want to get into. So we're going to be rolling out basically every single component for each one of these phases with the resource, the training, coaching, all of that stuff, hand-holding, etc. For phase 1, phase 2, and then we're going to be talking around phase 3, which is just going to be expedited support. So we're going to be doing 4 weeks on Evolution 1, 4 weeks on systems, engines, all of that stuff, and then we're going to be doing 4 weeks focused on RevOps and support. You're going to have access to everything we have. We're bucketing it, putting all the resources, all the documentation, all of the shit that we've put together, we're going to be baking into basically a program. Okay. The way we're going to be doing this is I'm going to basically onboard you guys one-on-one. So we're going to build out onboarding roadmap, figure out what you guys need help with. It's going to be ran by me each week. We're going to be doing one call to go over the basically specific resource, playbook, training, whatever asset that we're covering for that week. One open Q&A, one-on-one scheduled as needed, and then access to everything for a year. Okay. Again, this is what it is. We're going to be starting with 10 people. First 10 people, it's 5K. Second 10 people, we're going to be bumping up and we're going to be basically pushing this up until about 15K. Reason I'm doing this is because I've always literally wanted to do this. And we've said no to pretty much everybody that can't do certain things with us because of the budget constraint or it's not done for you, whatever the case may be. So yeah, we spent the last 30, 60 days basically putting this together and we're starting at this price. So if anybody wants to talk about that, they can book the call. If you want to ask questions, feel free. But basically this is me just taking you guys through everything that we've got, whatever you need help with for the next 90 days. And then you have access to us for a year. So yeah, guys, I hope this was valuable. I haven't been reading the chat, but I hope this was good for you guys. And we can open it up for Q&A for anybody that wants to stick around.
Hey man, I'll go. Wow, that was crazy. You've put a ton of, there's so much detail there. I'm beyond impressed. With this program, the end result is we've built a custom to our niche platform.
Yeah, so we're going through baseline, getting baseline set up, KPIs, expectations, compensation, basically all of the recruiting, promotion, all of that stuff. Second piece is going to be system. implementation. So installing setter engine, closer engine, show rate, follow up, all these different components. It's guided. So just understand that we're not putting this in place for you. We're giving you the documentation. We're basically taking you through the process. And then the last phase is what to do now that you have systems, numbers, and everything in place, because that's where people typically get stuck. They start looking at a million different areas. With revenue operations, when you have a good process in place, people, and system, a 2.5% decrease in a specific number can mean hundreds of thousands of dollars lost a year. A 2.5% increase off the baseline can mean hundreds of thousands of dollars in your pocket a year. So we're going to talk about revenue operations at the very end. And yeah, man, I mean, that's it. That's exactly
Just
what it is.
quick follow-up question. Is there a revenue threshold that you would suggest someone to have before they implement this whole thing? And the second question is a revenue threshold. And second question is it platform agnostic? I know you said like 3 at the beginning of the call, but like if we're building inside a Go High Level, for example, like let's say our agency account sits inside a Go High Level, are we going to hit roadblocks? Because I think I know you guys predominantly use HubSpot, which is not a good or bad thing. It's just we just happen to use Go High Level.
Yeah, so we predominantly use HubSpot. The system architecture and a lot of the documentation that we have is around HubSpot. However, the frameworks and the basically process to get this stuff in place, tags, stages, automation, etc., it's all agnostic. So as long as the functionality is there, you can do it.
Yep. No, it should be. It should be. Cool.
I
Thank
mean,
you.
it is. GHL, it is. There's just certain components that you have to work around, and then the reporting in GHL is kind of buns. But other than that, you should be able to do what you need to. So
For sure. Yeah. It's
yep.
got a lot of room to grow for sure. But
Yeah,
appreciate
there's ways to work around it. Yeah, go ahead, Tuck.
Hey, Aaron, I want to say thank you for this, man. This was mind-blowing.
Good.
Mustafa, thanks for those questions. I also needed to know those answers. By the way, Aaron, you didn't answer the one he asked about what revenue requirement would you recommend for the program to make sense?
I think one of the most important things is you're actively trying to put your sales team together. If you are starting that process, this will be incredibly valuable. If you're not looking to bring on a sales team and you're just kind of solo, one-man team, whatever the case may be, I'd wait a little bit. Unless you just want to, speed it up and figure out exactly what you need to do. Because there's a lot of free resources and stuff out there that can kind of help you get things a little bit turned around and moving. But if you're focused on building a team and you either have problems with systems, onboarding, training, all of these different things in terms of components, I would 100% say that, I mean, this would be the time to start setting this stuff up. And if you don't have a roadmap and a plan to do it, dude, I put so much into this in terms of value for the price point and what we're doing. Like, I literally don't see a better way to speed this up other than what we're going to be doing in this. And obviously I've put a lot of time into it, but I've done this process a lot for many teams, and I've never had it this boiled down ever. So,
And I appreciate that. Okay, so that was follow up on Mustafa's question. So my question is, okay, so cool, makes sense. If you want to build a team, doesn't matter, revenue endpoint has to be dialed down. Perfect. Now, what I've been thinking of as you've been speaking is that I realize that if we really want to build $1 million per week organization, these foundations are critical now, right? So, and that's what I've really been focusing on, is trying to make sure our roots are deep, because as things scale up extremely fast. Now, my problem right now is, depending on me, my problem right now is, I thought you were answering me, my bad.
Oh, you're good. Sorry.
My problem right now is, I understand that I need to spend time to build the systems, which means engage in this entire process myself as well, right?
Yep.
Sales director, to offload some of this, because I am the founder, I also have other roles. What would you recommend in terms of when would be the best time to get a sales director on board to take care of all of this stuff, or when is the good time for me to get myself out of it?
The easiest answer, yeah, I know what you're asking. The easiest answer, do you know your numbers? Do you have baseline?
Okay. So
if you don't, you can't, because you're going to bring somebody in. You're going to have no way to set expectations for them. They're going to start running off in different directions. You're not going to be able to direct them. And again, the number one downfall that I put between phase 1 and phase 2, I briefly mentioned it, is delegation of responsibility before knowing your freaking numbers or having any kind of process documented. It's literally the number one thing that I see all the time, because they say exactly what you just said. I'm a founder, I got other responsibilities, I can't get this in place. And then they go hire a sales director. And unless that person is the freaking bomb and like they're just really good, which is highly unlikely, you're going to be throwing them into basically a path that's just can't really be successful because they have to prove all of this stuff. So again, you got to know your numbers, right? Like if you have baseline set up, like you're going to have a way better chance at success of bringing in a sales director. And then also, you don't need a sales director right away. Bring in a star closer and let them build up, right? Like you don't want to make a sales manager before you actually have something to manage, right? So like again, I mentioned it earlier as well, bottom up promotion, right? Like so there's I'd say Tuck, if you want to book a call and even if you have no intention in the program, that's fine. Just I mean we can jam for 15, 20 minutes and I can kind of assess where you're at a little bit more.
Cool.
Yeah, happy to do it.
What's up, gentlemen?
What's going on?
Yeah, good stuff, dude. Aaron, you're always articulating everything in such a good way. So appreciate this. I have a question related to platform wise. So we got a client, they were doing above 100 grand a month, which was, to be honest with you, based on the pipeline value, was actually still kind of baby. But they're using Active Campaign and Just Call, and
Yikes.
it's a very interesting setup. So I just want to kind of get your thoughts on that in general. Like, is that number one, could that work with this? And number two, is that just like a setup for failure or what?
Well, I think you kind of know the answer. I think it's a setup for failure. I don't know a single company out there that's successful, and I've ran into thousands of them that is on that structure. So like they're kind of building their own path and hoping it's going to work, which we all know here. Like if everybody successful is on XYZ stack, there's a reason for that, right? So I would say, again, like depending on industry and team and what they're doing and size and all that stuff, like Active Campaign is an email platform that decided to build a CRM because I don't know if you guys have noticed, but the last 3 years, every single software out there is now a CRM, right? Every single one is a CRM now. And I don't feel like, again, I don't have a ton of experience except for migrating people off of it. So I would say if they plan on scaling, I would say get off the platform and get something that's got a higher ceiling and more, robustness and functionality and all of that stuff. Can you do what I just mentioned in it? Probably. Probably could. Yeah.
Okay.
I just don't know what the limitations are going to be, right? So you can absolutely set up the reactivation side in Active Campaign, 1000%, right? I'm not sure the pipeline functionality. I'm not sure on all of the other stuff, but you absolutely could get some of this stuff put in place for them for sure.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah, we'll book a call and maybe we'll just show you what we have and see what we can do.
Yeah, dude, would love to.
Sweet.
100%.
Appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Cody.
Yeah, I mean, I think every time that I see you presentate or talk about something, it's always blowing my mind, to be honest. So definitely appreciate you putting that together and everything. The one thing that I did want to add is like we're all talking about like foundations and when is a good time to build out systems. I can say when I made the jump from running from like a 10-person sales team to acquiring a business with almost 130 employees, systems is better to do and build out before you start expanding, because holy Lord, is it like you're all of a sudden you start expanding, the problems come, and then you're trying to take a step back, and then you got all the anxiety of you're wanting to make sure everyone you're paying everybody's bills, like as the owners, and dude, the overwhelm of that, and especially as a visionary, and then you got to go and step back to something you already never want to do. No one wants to make SOPs and build out systems. And when you're trying to do that while your salespeople are like, this isn't working, they're pointing the finger at the marketing team, and the marketing team's pointing the finger over there, and you're trying to like convince them all without the data, right? And it's like that right there is the biggest thing that when asking like when is the right time to bring on something like this? It's like when is the right time to bring on data that's going to help you run your business is as soon as possible. And the reason I'm saying that 100%, dude.
Yeah. It's basically go back to go.
Yeah, go back to
Go.
go, and then you're demoralized, and including like this doesn't even include just like hiring salespeople. The biggest thing to talk about equally is like with AI. Imagine you bring AI in, but now you can't even track if it's doing something good or not. Congratulations, you prompted this awesome agent to do all these great things, and your systems can't even tell you if it's working right. So I don't know,
Yeah, that's actually a good point. Adam, I'll come to you in 2 seconds here. One of the downfalls that I've seen with a lot of early stage businesses and late stage businesses is they throw AI on top of something that's already broken. If you want to implement AI the right way and you want to get the results that some companies are getting with the AI, different models and et cetera, is you need to pick a point in the system or a part of the process that you want to implement it into. You cannot just blanket coat everything with AI. That's how you fail. So when you're looking at, that's why I mentioned with the layer one reactivation, like, guess what? Great, controllable, easily tracked. We're tracking reactivated revenue by the AI, right? You can implement AI there. Why? Because it's systemized, it's a process, it's set up, it's structured, et cetera. But if you say, I'm going to take my entire setter thing and I'm going to put AI on it, good freaking luck. Good luck. It's not going to work for you. What up, Adam? Go ahead.
How are we doing, Aaron?
Doing good, dude. Not too bad.
I appreciate the presentation. I've been following your stuff for a while, and it always provides a ton of value. And I actually know one of your team members, Riley Mix. I've known him for probably like 2 years back when he was doing mostly lending here in Florida. So it's cool to see everything
Nice.
full circle. I saw him pop in at the beginning. My question for you, because I've seen this pop up in some of your YouTube videos and some of your content around HubSpot, like going direct to them for either buying some of their options and getting a profile with them is traditionally very expensive, but going through either you guys or a third party for a connection could be a cheaper way to get involved. Because I'm probably going to look for HubSpot for myself, for my business and my agency, as well as the clients and offers that I run. I want to transition them as well, because we use a lot of GHL and close, and I'd rather it be all in one. And I like everything that I've seen and learned from you. So I wanted to get your recommendation on how I can go about getting involved with them on maybe a cheaper way to go about it.
Yeah, so two things. One, if you're going to start bringing people to HubSpot, then you're going to want to get into the partner program, ecosystem, et cetera, which just shoot me a message and I can explain that to you. The second thing is it's not necessarily that going through somebody else you can get, well, yes, you can get a better deal, but it's just knowing what kind of negotiation you can do with the platform at the end of it, right? Like, for example, people will go to HubSpot and they buy one hub, then the next hub, then the next hub, the next hub, and they get absolutely screwed and hosed because they are paying 90% what the standard price is for every single hub. And then they go to add seats, and then they go to add marketing contacts. And then everyone goes, holy shit, HubSpot's expensive. It's not. It's not. At the end of the day, if you know what you're going in to get, you can bundle that pricing. You can get fat discounts up front for your seats, your marketing contacts, your hubs, everything, 50, 60% off in some cases, right? And what ends up happening is your overall stack for everything that you need. So your marketing software, your fulfillment side, your service, your sales, your automation, your reporting, all of that stuff is in one platform. And yeah, if you're, doing a few $100,000 a month, it might be $2-3 grand a month, but that's your whole tech stack, dude. Right? Like that's everything, right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
I would say if you're going to go through HubSpot and you're not a partner, hit us up. We'll help you get a good deal and help you figure out what you need. If you're going to start bringing your clients to it, there's two things I'm going to suggest to you. Check out a company called Supered. It allows you to snapshot and deploy environments, which is pretty cool. So if you have the same exact type of client every single time, if you don't, it's really difficult to really do much with it. Like you can install like foundation mechanisms and stuff. But then the second thing is check out the partner program. And yeah, bro, if you have questions, I mean, we've been a partner for a long time. So I've actually,
that would be helpful.
Yeah, I've gone 0 to diamond with 2 different companies in the last like 3 years. So, and that's
for
program
for
accreditation.
Connecting with you about that, should I send you an email or DM you on Instagram, or what would you prefer?
Use the link below. Just book the call. It's in the chat.
Okay. Yeah. I think I want to go in that direction, because my current client, they're doing between 100. One of my clients is doing between 100 and 200,000 a month, and their tech stack is all over the place. And when I came in to run the offer, there was no data tracking, no reporting. Everything's a mess. The previous operators took everything and ran, and it's like a whole rebuilding the business from scratch. So everything in the prior phases, which I would have liked to have done for them, I have to go back and start over. So like, I want to get the tech stack in line.
Welcome to my world, my friend. Welcome. Yeah, it's it's a fun game if you know what you're doing and you can get things set up properly. It's very difficult if you don't do that. So
100%.
Yeah, book a call, dude. Be happy to chat.
Yeah, 100%.
All right, everybody who's on here made it this far. I really appreciate it, guys. This shit's really fun for me, and I love doing it. So I will chat with you guys soon, whoever books, and yeah, if you guys need anything in the meantime, reach out.